Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my study and the process of being decorated and cleaned. Looking a bit different this week. I've come on slightly earlier this week because later on this evening is an event I will tell you a little bit about. So I'll speak for, about 20 minutes maybe, and then we'll pass over to the other event, which is a CBR, Campaign for Bioethical Reform. They're doing a Zoom meeting tonight, and then they're having an event in Edinburgh on Saturday morning. Now, CBR are a pro-life group, and what they do is go on the streets with images of fetuses, unborn children at various stages of gestation for people to see, and also with pictures of abortions as well, in an educational way. So they're there to show people the reality of abortion, and they're going to be doing that on Princes Street on Saturday morning. So if you want to join that, if you want to join the team doing that, the more the merrier, do join in. Then there's a Zoom link for a meeting starting at 8 o'clock this evening, which is 25 minutes time. You can find the sign up link on our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. So just have a look there now. Click to sign up, put your email address in. You'll get an email with a Zoom link, and you can join us at 8 o'clock. So it would be great to see you. Even if you can't make it on Saturday, you can still come along and hear the what they've got to say in terms of their philosophy and what they're doing. And maybe you'll be able to join in one in another part of Scotland another time. So I'm looking forward to that on Saturday. Now, let's see what happens. Let's see what the reaction is to that. So, sign up. Now, I've got a few bits of news I thought I could just talk about, as I normally do in a live stream. So what's been going on? Well, the Welsh Assembly, which is a little bit like the Scottish Parliament, only a bit smaller and basically not as powerful. They've proposed some reforms. They're going to reform themselves. They're making it bigger, so they're going to have more members of the Assembly. And the other thing they're doing, well, there are two other things. They're changing to single transferable vote, which basically is like the council elections, which makes it into a bit of a carve-up for the big parties. So it's moving towards eliminating the chance that there used to be for small parties to get in. That's the way that the Greens got in, UKIP got in as well. So I think they're taking away that entry point. That's basically the established parties carving it up for themselves, trying to ensure that they stay in control. But the other thing they've done that's been most interesting to me is the proposal is that in the constitution of the Parliament, it will demand 50% male, 50% female lists of candidates. So, so it's not up to the party to decide. You have to do that. So if you're a small party, let's say you need, 6 candidates to cover the different regions in Wales. If you haven't got 3 men and 3 women, well, you just can't stand. If you've got 4 men and 2 women, you just can't do it. You can't put forward 6 candidates. It's crazy. It's so anti-democratic. It's forcing a philosophy onto political parties who probably don't share it in some cases. Well, maybe they'll do it, all do in Wales, but we don't here. And in Scotland as well, they've looked at bringing in regulations like that. And when that happens, we will fight that tooth and nail because it's anti-democratic. It's not the job of the constitution, as arranged by the government, to tell political parties how to select their candidates for election. So watch this space. Another little story. This is from a few weeks ago. I've been intending to share it. Didn't quite get around to it. I just bumped into someone that I know who's had some issues with gender confusion, cross-dressing, transgenderism, and they've had sort of phases of that. But it's not sort of path they want to go down. That they got a much more positive alternative to that. And I met them. And the plan of their life is, when they fall into the gender confusion, cross-dressing, etc., that's the time when lives fall into bits. Drinking a lot, maybe drugs as well. It's really not good. Everything's going wrong. That's part of that. And they get out of that phase, and life is much more positive, going in a really purposeful, good direction. I thought that's completely opposite to the usual narrative we hear, isn't it? Where what people with gender confusion need is they need to be set free into the liberation of changing gender, cross-dressing, etc. But this person I was talking to, completely the opposite story. Now, so we've got these events, I said, at 8 o'clock this evening, and then on Saturday. Thursday next week, in Edinburgh, we've got Matthew Grech coming. Matthew Grech is the ex-gay gentleman. He was on the live stream a few months ago. Lots of people watched that. He is from Malta. He was a contestant on X Factor in Malta when he revealed that he'd moved away from his homosexual identity, and they then threw him off the show. He was chopped from the show. But a fascinating character. It was online, obviously, on the live stream. He was in Malta, I think, at the time. But he's going to be here in Edinburgh on Thursday. Now, previous times I've mentioned this. I've said he was here because he's getting married. That's not right. I've got the wrong end of the stick. He's here for a wedding, but it's not his wedding. That's happening the weekend after. So that's in Edinburgh, Thursday night next week. Be great to see you at that. Now, another thing in the news. Scottish Government super sponsor scheme for Ukrainian refugees suspended. Now, as far as I can tell, I've talked about this before, and this has worked out the way I expected it to work out. I think the UK government had the idea that in order to arrange for the Ukrainian refugees to be distributed across Britain, organizations could put themselves forward as a super sponsor. And I think they were thinking it could be like some sort of community organization, a religious organization, something like that. So you take, for example, it could be, say, a church or a group of churches say, yeah, we'll do it. And that church would know the people. They could arrange that they allocate people to potential hosts, etc. So they could do it on a real personal level with a personal touch, knowing the people who are going to be involved in it. Really community, sort of organic charitable activity coming from the community. I think that was the intention. But as soon as it was announced, the Scottish government jumped in and said, we'll do it. Now, it seemed to me as though they were pushing out of the way all the other organizations that probably could have done a much better job, more organically, with more personal relationship. They pushed all those out of the way. So now we're the government. We want to be the ones who are seen to be doing this good thing. And now it's a mess. They've had to suspend it. They're going to have people living in a ship or something because they can't find accommodation for them. As far as I can tell, there's no shortage of people in Scotland willing to take refugees from Ukraine. But it seems to me that the big government approach to it has just crushed the good, spontaneous goodwill and community organization that could have dealt with this problem superbly. But the government instead says, push those out, and is now making a mess of it itself. Now, one last thing I say, do go over and click to sign up to the Campaign for Bioethical Reform meeting tonight. If you missed the start, the meeting starts at 8 o'clock tonight. Go to our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. You'll see the sign up link, then you'll get an email with the Zoom link. And on Saturday, they're doing a display, a pro-life display on Princes Street in Edinburgh that features some images that are intended to, well, just show people the reality of abortion. So it's quite a provocative, the word, quite direct tactics, let's call it that at least. So yeah, looking forward to being there for that and seeing people's reactions. But we need people on the team. CBR need people to be there on the team that are trained, knowing what to do, knowing to talk to people, how to talk to people. So if you're interested in that, I say, do sign up for the link now and see you in a quarter of an hour's time. Right, one last thing to mention. Now, Dr. Colin Morrison, since I went away and read his dissertation, where he writes of the need to break down the barrier between childhood and sexuality, this is the Dr. Colin Morrison, of course, in charge of the sex education resources in Scotland. He's on the Scottish Education Council. That's the sort of government body that discusses education. He's also he's co-director of the Children's Parliament in Scotland as well. So when it comes to things to do with children and education and sex, he's right there at the centre. So since I read his dissertation, I've just gone on again and again and again, talking about it, letting people know what this man's views really are. And it's outrageous that he's in that position, utterly outrageous. Now, I just had cause to go back to his dissertation the other day just to check something up. And I came across a bit that I didn't include in anything I've published so far, but quite interesting. So I'll just share this with you. Now, this is from Dr. Morrison's PhD dissertation. So it says, what has been created, it would seem, is an association, even obsession, between adult life and sexuality, and a growing gulf between childhood, as something special and different, and sexuality. Okay, so he's saying that this society has created a gulf between childhood and sexuality. Sounds good to me? He doesn't think so. As an example, the need to separate childhood and sexuality has been played out in debates about the sexualization of childhood by the media, with concerns about the marketing of certain products to children which reflect sexual imagery or messages. Yeah, I think marketing things to children with sexual imagery and messages is wrong. Yes, I think that's wrong. What does Dr. Morrison have to say about it? The Scottish Parliament has explored these issues through the commissioning of research about the prevalence of products such as toys and clothing, which appear to be aimed at children under the age of 16 and which employ age-inappropriate sexual imagery or have other sexual connotations through, for example, association with certain adult brands, elements of the product design, or in the way the products are marketed. Okay. Right, Dr. Morrison now says, however, while the report acknowledges concerns that children are exposed to images and goods which the adult perceives of as sexual, and that children construct and develop their identities in part through what they consume, it would be simplistic to conclude that children are in any sense simply the dupes of the marketers. Okay, so the Scottish Parliament produced a motion or something objecting to sexualized products being marketed to children. And Dr. Morrison is basically saying it's not that they're being marketed to sort of unwilling children. You know, the children are not in any sense simply the dupes of the marketers. In other words, this sexuality is inherent in the children. They're not being corrupted. It's not being imposed on them. It's not something that's been brought into their childhood inappropriately. He's saying it's already there. So selling them things that therefore enable them to express their sexuality is actually okay. That's the normal and natural thing. So again, I mean, quite shocking. So even on something there where there's pretty universal agreement, isn't there, in society, it's sort of mainstream commentary, the marketing sexualized products to children is wrong. Dr. Morrison, however, seems to think that it's quite natural because children want those things, because children are sexual. So it's only normal that they should want to buy, wear, whatever, engage with sexualized items. So, yeah, quite outrageous yet again. The more you read about him, the more things like that you find. But he continues in his job. We've alerted the government. We've sent press releases to the media. We do everything we can. We mention it on every occasion. But it seems the Daily Express ran one article about him. But generally, it seems like they're not interested. But we will keep going and going and going. Dr. Morrison will obviously be aware of my incessant criticism of him. If he thought I was making it up, if it wasn't true, he'd have got the lawyers on the case by now, wouldn't you? I mean, if someone was going around really, criticizing you pretty severely and suggesting that you are a child sexuality advocate, that's a pretty serious charge. Then if that was not true, he would have struck back through lawyers. He'd have said, right, I'm taking you to court because I didn't really say that. But the fact that that's not happened indicates, obviously, that what I'm saying is what he actually thinks. It is what he wrote. And he thinks the best tactic is just to ignore it and hope it goes away. Well, we've got no plans of going away at all. Right, it's now coming up to 10 to 8. So do go and click the link to sign up to the CBR session starting at 8 o'clock. I'll be there for that. I think my wife's joining me in a minute for that. So see you in a few minutes if you can make it. There might be a live stream 9 o'clock next week. I shall see. But if there's one next week, that will be the last one for the summer. So hopefully see you in 10 minutes over on Zoom. Right. Good night.